In today's video, we're taking a look at the latest NHL trade talk from around the NHL. The rumors today we're looking at include both of the Strome brothers. Dylan and Ryan could possibly both find themselves on the move here before the end of the offseason. We also have some rumors around the San Jose Sharks, including some guys like Tomas Hertl possibly being on the move. Some rumors around the Ottawa Senators and some deals they might be looking at. They're looking at some centers, as well as a guy like Logan Brown still likely to get moved before the end of this offseason. We have Jason Dickinson signing in Vancouver, and a bunch more of the 2021 NHL early draft picks have signed entry-level deals. We'll discuss all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here today. Before we jump into any of that, we do have some other NHL news I do want to touch on here quickly. First up, there is word that the NHLPA is urging NHL players to be vaccinated ahead of the NHL season starting, of course, in October. Training camps will get started later into September. Of course, a part of that is because they may end up being forced to miss games, or if they miss games, lose money if they are unable to go to areas where vaccinations are required. Like as of right now, for example, the Canadian-U.S. border is open to some degree, but you do have to be fully vaccinated to enter Canada without having any kind of an isolation requirement. So for American teams traveling into Canada to play games, if they have players that are not vaccinated, they basically will not be able to travel the team, not be able to attend. And if they're unable to miss, be forced basically to miss time because of that, and that's their own choosing, then they're not going to be paid, is what it sounds like. So that certainly could be problematic and could be a little bit of an issue that I wouldn't be shocked if you get a few players that really don't want the vaccine to have some pushback against. But it's not really just the league, it's government rules. There's a lot more to it than just what the players union or the league wants here. So it's obviously a lot more at stake when it comes to that. So we'll have to see where things go. But I know in Canada, at least, there's a lot of push for a lot of events in NHL, not just NHL arenas, but a lot of other public events, large gatherings, government, federal employees to all be required to be vaccinated to attend those events. Like I said, Canada federal government is pushing for a lot of workers to be vaccinated for a lot of that stuff. I know we're likely going to be having an election here soon, and that's going to be one of the hot topics, I think, around it too. So we'll see where this goes, but obviously the PA pushing for players to be vaccinated to make sure they don't miss time and get fully compensated. And at the same time, they don't really want to have any outbreaks that will impact the season like we've seen over the last year or so. So hopefully it becomes a non-issue as we get ready to start the 2021-22 NHL season. Now, as I mentioned, we have some signings today, including some 21 NHL draft selections. But first, we get the Vancouver Canucks announcing today that they've avoided arbitration and signed a fairly newly acquired Jason Dickinson, who they picked up via trade from the Dallas Stars. There wasn't really a huge concern it was going to end up going to arbitration because they really weren't that far apart on negotiations, but usually the player will file just as a precaution to make sure that if they need it, that they get there, but nobody really wants that situation to arise. Dickinson signs a 3-year contract at $2.65. So to me, that's a pretty good deal. I know I've seen reports from the Dallas Stars side of things before they traded him that they were expecting his contract to come in somewhere between 2.5 and 2.8. So obviously that's pretty much right on par with where this one lands. So I think for the role that he's going to be expected to play, likely be on the third line, be a penalty killer, hopefully provide a little bit of secondary scoring. Like that's for what he's going to give you. That's a pretty decent contract, so I have no concerns there. I know the Canucks for the most part have done a good job with contracts. They do again though still have some questionable ones, and of course the Hughes and Pettersson deals are still don't appear to be anywhere close or imminent yet. But we're likely going to be doing a video possibly as early as tomorrow talking about all the latest updates, rumors, etc. on all the RFAs, because there's still a lot of big-name RFAs yet to sign deals this offseason. We're starting to get to the second half of August, so I know we're still a little ways from a pressure point hitting, but it's not too far away that it's going to be ramped up as far as media attention goes, which is going to make it a bigger story to talk about. As far as the 2021 NHL draft selection signing, some ELCs. We got some big ones today. The Islanders signed Aatu, of course, who was at one point a few years ago was a potential number 1 overall selection. The Finnish forward was likely going that high. Like, there was a lot of people thought he could be number one, and he really fell off the map, ended up going 52nd overall to the New York Islanders. So not only was he not first, he wasn't even a first-round pick, and he was closer to the the middle part of the second round. So obviously a lot of teams and scouting people have some concerns, but he could be a little bit of a project for the Islanders, but at the same time it could still turn out to be a decent player. Only time will tell. But at this point, at least he signs his ELC. Obviously the Islanders have more faith and confidence in him than a lot of other teams who passed on him. So we'll see if they're the smart ones here down the road and getting that deal done. We also just got word a short time ago that the Red Wings have signed first-round selection top goalie in the draft, Sebastien Cossa of the WHL's Edmonton Oil Kings. He signs his 3-year entry-level contract as well. He's likely going to continue playing junior for at least one more year, and he very well likely be one of the goaltenders, if not even possibly the most likely starter at this point for the Team Canada entry into the World Junior Championships this Christmas season. So it should be a big year for his development, and we'll see where things go. But like I said, he gets his ELC on the books, but obviously he won't play in the NHL for probably, I'm going to say, at least 2 years. I'm not sure how quick of an early path. We know the Red Wings and Yzerman are fond of really letting players develop and kind of percolate in the minors and get their time in before getting them too much of an NHL shot. So I think it was a terrific selection. I'm looking forward to seeing him in the NHL and getting him under contract at least and making sure he's going to remain with your organizations. It's a good first step, so that's good for Detroit. And we also saw the San Jose Sharks sign their first-round selection. To me, was a little bit of a fall in your lap kind of surprise, but Raty Eklund ends up going to the Sharks, and he signs his ELC. And it sounds like he's most likely going to be playing hockey in North America this year. I don't know if he'll make the NHL right off the bat. I know a lot of people thought, it seems like there's at least some out there that think he could be one of the few players that would have a shot at making the NHL right away, because a lot of the top guys are playing college hockey and have already committed to going, so they're going to be doing that this year. So a lot of the top higher end selections, a lot of them won't sign contracts in the NHL until their NCAA or college hockey time is over. But in Eklund's case, where he's coming from Europe, he's got a little bit more flexibility. Reports are he's even willing to play in the American Hockey League. So at the very least, he should be in North America, either in San Jose or with the Barracuda, their AHL affiliate. So, at least we'll keep a close eye on him, see where things go. But I wouldn't be shocked at the very least if he gets at least some NHL time. Hard to say if he'll get it right off the top, though, into the NHL season. So those are your signings for today. Before we jump into the trade rumors of the day, I do want to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, with Manscaped, we have a special offer here for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers where you can get 20% off and free shipping on all orders at manscaped.com. Now, of course, Manscaped just launched a brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is a fantastic product. They've taken the level up here, even again with the skin-safe replaceable blades. It's waterproof, it's wireless charging, has a travel lock on it, as well as a nice light so you don't miss what you're doing. So certainly a terrific product. Now, many people associate Manscaped with their trimmers, which is certainly kind of their top product, but they do have a lot of other great options as well, including what they call the Weed Whacker, which is another trimmer for your ears and nose. And they have a variety of deodorants and sprays as well, which also keep you fresh and are terrific as well. So certainly Manscaped has a lot to offer, and we certainly highly recommend all of their products. So check out manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content from Manscaped. I do greatly appreciate it. I also want to take a quick moment and just thank all the great viewers and subscribers out there that have been supporting this channel recently. We've had tremendous growth the past few months. We've had lots of new subscribers, channel members, lots of the super thanks. More people have been buying the merchandise, like the hoodies and stuff. So certainly, well appreciated. And there is actually a sale on the hoodies right now as well. If you check the post, the community post I put up just in the past couple of days, there's a promo code with a discount that we're going to be doing here for the remainder of the month of August. So if you're a channel member, you get a certain discount. If you're not just a regular member or subscriber, then there's a different discount. So it depends on what your standing is whether or not you hold a membership. It's still some great sales going on, and if you check that out, I'd appreciate it, and anything you buy does help support the channel. So again, thank you for all your support recently. It's very much appreciated. Now, with the trade talk of the day, most of today's rumors and information comes from an article from Bruce Garriock of the Ottawa Sun, and even though he mostly does cover Ottawa, a lot of the topics in his article today actually talk about a lot of other players, most of which have been connected to the Senators, but just because the Senators are linked to some of these guys, it doesn't mean that these players wouldn't possibly end up elsewhere, because they're all players that have been, rumored to be on the move in some capacity or another over the past couple of months. So first up, let's look at the Strome brothers. Both Ryan and Dylan are both in the rumor mill of potential finding a new home. When it comes to Ryan Strome and the Rangers organization, and when it comes to Dylan, like the Sens have been linked to both of them, mainly because there's been a lot of talk that they want to add, ideally, a number 2 center. They were quite happy and pleased with how Josh Norris developed last year, being the number 1 center, but they still would like a little bit more insulation for the other guys, especially Shane Pinto. Pinto, who signed out of college late in the season, had a really solid start to his career, got into I think it was 10 or 12 games or whatever it was, and looked really good. And I think in the future, he can be, and most likely will be, the number 2 guy, number 2 center. To me, he's probably even better defensively in two-way games than Norris. Not that Norris is a slouch that way, but I think Pinto's a little stronger on the defensive side. So having him as a number 2 to me makes a ton of sense. I don't know if he'll ever be like a future Selke candidate or not, but he's really good. And for a brief showing, it was impressive. So, but still, he only got a limited amount of games, so you don't want to put too much on him too soon. So they were rumored to be bringing in a veteran center, especially somebody maybe on a 1 or 2 year deal, not for too long, so they're not kind of blocking players out of the lineup. So both of the Strome guys have 1 year left. They've been linked to both. But in Ryan's case, the only way the Rangers are going to trade Ryan Strome is if they do pull off like a Jack Eichel trade, or they end up making an upgrade. Obviously, sending him to Ottawa is not going to give them a replacement guy to upgrade. It's not like they're going to do a swap and end up with something better that way. If they trade Ryan Strome to Ottawa, it would be for a younger prospect or a pick or something to that effect, right? But if they pull off an Eichel trade, then obviously they would prefer to go with Eichel and Zibanejad. But as we talked about before in the channel, Zibanejad might get kind of blocked out of re-signing with the Rangers if Eichel goes there, so that could change the dynamic too. But a lot of people feel that Strome would be moved if Eichel's brought in. But if the Sabres don't want him in their package, they might have to do a separate move to do that. And Ottawa was interested, kind of waiting around to see if that was going to materialize or not. Now, so the interest there is kind of, I guess you could say it's mild. It's not, huge, but if it happens, then they would consider it. Dylan Strome, same thing. They have mild interest in Dylan Strome. To me, who would be the better fit? He's a younger player, would come at a smaller price tag, and to me, would fit in better with their young group of core players. And if they find that he fits well, like he did early in his time in Chicago, it could be, a player that kind of bounces back and finds his game. So we'll have to see about that. Doesn't mean that for sure either one will end up in Ottawa. Like I say Ryan likely stays with the Rangers unless they pull off a big trade for Eichel. And Dylan, well, we'll have to see. Chicago is reportedly looking to move him. They would like to get him a fresh start and move on from him. And Ottawa is one of the teams that are linked, so we'll see. Now, another player that the Senators want to move that would make sense and being involved in a trade would be Logan Brown, their former first-round selection from 5-6 years ago now, who's never materialized. I mean, he's a 6'6" left shot center iceman, second-generation NHL player. His dad, Jeff, played in the NHL a long time, has good pedigree, came with a lot of potential. The Sens even moved up in the draft to snag him, because they were quite excited to get him on their roster. And at this point, it just hasn't materialized. He's battled a lot of injuries. And you know what? Maybe he could be a player that could be swapped for like a Dylan Strome. That might work for both sides to get a young center in a new organization to see if things could work out for the better. But even though he hasn't been moved as of yet, Garriock still thinks there's a really good chance he could be moved, if not before training camp. If it doesn't happen by then, I would look for Ottawa to get him into some preseason games, try to showcase him, and then maybe get him moved along at that point if they can find a fit. But if they can get another more experienced center to come in, whether it's Strome or somebody else, it would make sense that he could be the piece to help them make that acquisition. Now, of course, another player that apparently the Sens have kicked tires on, but according to Garriock, at this point doesn't feel there's a lot to it with Ottawa, but he could still go elsewhere, is Tomas Hertl in San Jose. Now, we've talked a lot about the Sharks lately, especially because of the Evander Kane situation, which has gotten a lot of headlines. And as we mentioned in that Kane video, there's a lot of players in the Sharks organization that if Kane's going to be there, that they don't want to be. And there's a lot of Sharks players who kind of haven't had great seasons the last year or two and were rumored to be on the move anyway. So that includes Tomas Hertl. That includes Timo Meier. That includes Kevin Labanc. All those guys, I'm not going to suggest that they're all going to go, but Doug Wilson would like to shake things up a bit. And I think at this point, because of the pressure from all the other teammates, he'd love to move Kane. But as we've talked about, that is pretty much an impossibility here, given all the allegations and all the baggage that comes with him. He can't move Kane. He might have to shake up the roster by going the other routes here. Like I said, a lot of these guys, especially in the case of Hertl, down to 1 year left on his contract. So it makes sense why Ottawa would at least check in, because he has top 6 potential. He's been top 6 forward for a long time. Only 1 year left on the contract, so there's kind of a low risk there. You're not tied to him for a long time if it doesn't work out for the best. So even though Garriock doesn't feel the Sens are really in that market anymore, they're kind of looking at other guys now. Wouldn't be shocking if another team comes calling that Hertl finds himself on a go. Like I said, the Sharks situation is a complete mess right now. I don't know what they're going to do with Kane, but it's quite possible that a number of other players could find themselves on the go here before the season actually starts. There's a lot of bad contracts outside of Kane. You've got Carlson, you've got Burns, you got Vlasic. Logan Couture, those contracts for the most part are not movable. They're almost impossible to trade. Not going to say that they are impossible. They're almost impossible, because we do see some miraculous deals worked out occasionally, but there are situations that they're limited to who they can move. And at least some of their guys that are more like in the mid-20 range that could bounce back. They're still young enough that you give them a fresh start with a bunch of different players around them, that they might be able to get something better on the go. So, like I said, Hertl, Meier, Labanc, those are your main guys there that very well could be gone. And we'll see what Doug Wilson does, because, like I said, he's got some bad contracts. He's got a mess on his hands with Kane. A lot of these other guys have been underperforming, and I just don't know what they're going to do. Like, it's a bad situation, and I'm really not sure how Doug Wilson goes about fixing it. But we'll see what they do, if anything, here ahead of the season, because there's a lot of players that could end up walking via free agency if they're not traded ahead of time. So I'm sure they'd rather get some assets in return. So that is your news updates for today. Of course, as always, want to know your thoughts, your opinions on everything that we discussed. So make sure you leave lots of comments down below. Share your thoughts and opinions on that. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We will keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.